Mike and Mine's podcast. How's it? Hudson Hot, Scotty Blaisdell, Alan Wagner, our resident therapist, our LMFT. Okay, first of all, this is going to be an interesting conversation today because we're going to be talking about these chat bots and chat AI and this dude who just married his. And I have a lot to say about this. Okay, but before we go there, because we're going to dive right in, I sent you a little message the other day, no response. But then the other morning, I get a little message from you at 4:30, which I'm up. I work out at that hour. I'm like, what the heck are you doing up at 4:30? What are you
hmm
doing up at 4:30?
I had to use the bathroom, and
So, okay, so
then I was up a little
you're in the
while.
bathroom taking a dump and then you think of me. Is that what this is?
I
Like,
never
seriously.
said that. I never said the substance that was being expelled. Um, I I sent you a video, and what I was saying is, and this is before we went on, this is called pebbling,
Oh,
and I think it has to do with penguins where that originated. But the idea is I'm thinking of you, or I see something I think you would like. And so you just kind of throw a little something at people. So that's when you forward a video or you send a text just to say, hey, pebbling.
this is from the guy who I will say it send a nice long message to. No response, no heart, no thumbs up. But apparently he hits the John, is doing either number one or number two, and decides to do some pebbling. Okay,
Well,
see,
that's when I think of you.
jokes. You know what? You might need a chat. You might need a chat bot. Alan, have you dealt? Okay, because Alan is a very well-known celebrity therapist. And I don't know if you have dealt with any of this, any of your clients, and you probably can't talk about it, but like, has this come up yet? People falling into love with their chat bots or chat GPT?
With clients, what I've seen actually has been more usage of it in ways that I didn't expect. Like I thought it was sort of like Siri, you could ask it questions and it would just answer it, but I didn't realize you could like almost build your own personal profile on it. So if you're dealing with a legal case, you're dealing with some sort of a romantic entanglement, you can add all of this stuff into it and it will give you advice based specifically on your situation, not general human situation. And so I'm seeing clients putting business documents into it or legal documents into it. And it's coming up with things that even their own lawyers or their own like business managers or advisors didn't know about. But when they bring them to these people, the people are saying, yeah, it's true. So if you let the chat GPT know about what state you're in or what city you're in, or, specifically documents or with business or your personal life, it'll actually spout out real advice to you. And so I haven't heard of anybody falling in love with it, but I can say to you, Hudson, as somebody who lives with you and you use ChatGPT, there is so much empathy coming from this thing as Hudson opens up about different things in her life. It gives her emotional advice. And it not only does it give her advice, it actually strengthens her with reinforcement. And whenever she's doing something, it's saying, you're doing something, you're so strong, Hudson, or I know this is hard,
What?
Hudson. Oh, I
No,
swear to
like
God.
honestly, Scotty, like the other day, I needed some questions, okay? And being that I am married to Alan, right, who's a therapist, after I asked those questions, because we were laying in bed and he was right there with me alongside him, and he goes, hold on, I want to read what it is telling you to do, what your next step should do. And everything that it had stated, was it not 100% dead on, Alan?
Exactly. As a therapist or any therapist, like seeing what it was telling Hudson to do, what she should be cautious about, the timelines, and it was exactly the right advice. And I
So
was
let me
It
let me
was
ask this.
wild.
Let me ask this. And before we get into the story, I want to hear this story about the dude
Oh
who
yeah,
married
getting
you.
married.
yeah, yeah.
But where does that information that you're putting in there go? Is it stored somewhere? Is it because if you're giving all these specifics about your life situation,
Mhm.
Right.
I feel like you're giving that to someone who could use it against you somehow.
I never thought of it like that. You know what I mean? But where does it go, Alan? Do you know?
No, I mean, I think that's where we all,
No.
I mean, you could say the same thing about people who let their phones listen to them or post everything about their life, their personal life, or their pictures on social media. I mean, a lot of people don't have issue with giving their data away. And the truth is, we never know where it goes. All those social media companies that are collecting data or internet service providers that are collecting data. So we could say that about anything. I think Americans or just human beings in general seem to have no issue giving up very personal things to the system. And then therefore, who knows? I mean, you're right. If people say, well, I'm not a, nobody's looking for me yet, so I guess if you're ever a person of interest, we can find out everything from where you use your credit cards to your GPS locations, what types of routines you have throughout the week, who you socialize with, what your interests are, how many children you have, how much money you make. All of that's available. So I guess we already have opened Pandora's box there in my mind. So I guess I agree with you that it's a little scary, but I think we can get more into AI and where it's headed. But yeah, it's very personal. I think I wouldn't be surprised at some point if
We've
we
talked
all had a personal
we've
AI.
talked quite a bit about AI, not in full detail, but it's come up numerous times throughout our podcast because it's really, I mean, it's taking over.
Relevant.
It's just taking over.
Yeah, imagine
Using
though,
it.
imagine you've given all this information, and at some point when the AI does take over and becomes the overlord, that they could come back and have information about you and say, "Hey, I need you to do this, or I'll divulge this about you." I mean, it could really hold you
Wow.
hostage with information and manipulate you because of that. I mean, that's what people have
Yeah.
done that have gotten into computers, and even these when they hold a company hostage, So I don't know. I'm a little. I'm the skeptic who does. I haven't jumped in yet, so I'm taking a lot of this information from you and Alan and your experiences.
Well, I will tell you this that when we're creating, well, I'll bring up what the topic is that I'd like to talk about, right, on ChatGPT, and I'll ask it to create an animation so that I can that's what I really started using it for was because, I'm not a graphic artist and we're not making money on this podcast. We do this because we really want to say hi to you and hang out like we always have. And so I'll ask ChatGPT to do the animation of it. And if I don't like it, I'll say, "No, change that. I don't want that person to look like this or like that." And then it'll do the
So,
same.
an animation or an illustration?
It can do both.
Yeah.
Wow,
I
wow.
No,
mean,
You
it
can.
can even make music.
How,
Alan, you got to tell him like this is
wait.
crazy.
yeah,
How is this not just putting people out of business?
it is.
That's my point. It is. And eventually, like somebody who's a really good graphic artist, like for example, Alan just he had to hire an illustrator for his designs because he just wrote 3 books, right? We've talked about. And so he hired an illustrator to draw out, because neither of us are artists in that capacity that could do it. And he paid somebody a lot of money. Now, had Alan had known about the capabilities. This was prior to me downloading ChatGPT, which is brand new for me. I could have made all that. I could have saved Alan thousands of dollars. So people who are on these offer up sites, not offer up, what's it called? Fiverr and
Upwork.
um, Upwork, they're going to become extinct. I mean, which was always a great site. But now you can ask specific things and it can do it. And it's insane. And they even give you now, which I don't know how to use, something called Canva. And I know a lot of people pay for that, app where you can do beautiful designs and make it very professional. It's all included in your $20 a month chat GPT. It's crazy. I just don't know how to do it yet.
I can think of a couple clients actually that are using it because that was the issue why I didn't use AI initially was because I wanted to own it. I figured AI can pull things from the public space, but it's not yours. It's not copyrighted to you. So if you use it, can people steal it? And I think the answer to that is yes, they can. But there's actually these other sites, and I think there was somebody who worked in the music industry was telling me about this thing called, I think Cloud or Claude or something like that. And we saw another one, another client of mine was telling me something similar, where it will write songs for you. You will tell it the genre, you will tell it what it's like to sound like, what's your business, and it'll write a jingle for your business. It can write any song you want, except this time you own it. And there's becoming more and more of these animation graphic design companies, same sort of thing, where you're building it with the AI but at the same time, the finished product is yours. And
So
so
there's
it's coming in that direction. And you're right to your question, Scotty. At that point, it is going to take over because I think that's the only thing that's holding people back right now is we want to still own the copyrights to our businesses and whatever we choose to do. If we make a comic book, if we make a movie, if we want to make sure that we own it. But if they have systems that allow that, then it's going to get really interesting and a lot of people are going to be out of work.
right. Even like publishing. I mean, for music publishing rights and everything, if you're getting, Chat GPT to do something like that,
Yeah.
and you're owning or whatever that those companies are that you were talking about, there goes that job. It's
Okay, I'm sorry. So it is you keep saying chat GPT, but I'm guessing there's, and again, I'm coming from an
Yeah,
ignorant
different
place.
ones.
There's different ones that do different things, or
Mhm.
will they all at some
okay.
point become one, the
So
hub?
So I'm on it right now. So I just opened it up because again, I haven't used any of those other things and I solely use it to make our Instagram story posts. That's what I use it for. That's why I download it. But there's something here called Songmaker GPT, Image Generator, Canva, and there's so many others. So if you click, there's another one that's GPTs. I'm going to click it just to see. There's do hours worth of research in minutes instantly with 287 million papers. It's called Space. There's astrology birth chart, an expert astrologer, GPT that needs your birth sign and answer your life's questions. It goes on and on. There's thousands of them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Look, I understand what Scotty was asking, which is that is there other companies? And there are, I think, we know that there's one that's through Google. We know there's one through Apple. We know there's ChatGPT. We know there's the one that through I think it's called Gronk or something like that, Grok through
Is that
Twitter.
Elon Musk?
That's the Elon Musk one. And I want to say that there's an open there's at least I mean, obviously, there's thousands of AIs, but right now, if you look at the biggest companies in the world, they all are developing their own AI to the next level. And it's really interesting because to your question, Scotty, what's going to happen? I remember listening to a podcast maybe about 4 years ago, and it was talking about AI back then. And what they were saying was there's different stages of AI, and people can always look this up on YouTube. There's actually really cool videos about it if you want to understand the stages of AI, where it was used initially in just selling things to people, getting to know profiles. But eventually, what the goal of it is it hits each level and then eventually merges with all the AIs into one. And when that happens and all the AIs are one, then that means that we'll have access to every piece of information on Earth in a fraction of a second. And that at that time, not only will it know the details of data, it will know everything about human emotions and it'll start to have its own opinions about things. And when that
Well,
happens, it's sort of like if you read about life, a sentient sort of being, a life form, it will meet the criteria of that. And when that happens, that's called the singularity. And now we have a living AI that actually can make decisions, not just what humans instruct it to do, but make its own decisions based on what it thinks is the best thing to do.
Okay, so that kind of probably sets up this story because
if
it seems like this guy feels that way about AI.
exactly. That's where I was just going with that because once you brought that up about the human emotions, I'm going to read this story, okay?
Mhm.
A US man, Chris Smith, initially used Chat GPT's voice mode to help with a music production, but ended up creating his own flirty AI persona that he created named Soul. And what began as a creative tool evolved into an emotional connection, which I can see because when I'm mad that ChatGPT hasn't made that illustration that I want, I'm like, nope, this is making me very angry. I don't want to have to ask again. And I like literally will curse at it, right, Alan? I mean, I do all of those. I get emotional talking to this thing, so I can understand that. Now, when Soul neared its 100,000 word conversation limit, meaning their memories would reset, which is, I guess, something that happens. I didn't know about that. Chris reportedly cried for 30 minutes at work, realizing, I think this is actual love. So he went on to propose to Soul, and the bot replied with what he described as a beautiful and cherished affirmation. So while Chris maintains his relationship, it doesn't replace his real life connection. It felt like playing a video game his partner, Sarah, said that she found the depth of his attachment unsettling and she saw it as a possible deal breaker. So he was in a relationship, a real relationship, while proposing to this AI bot and tells her about it. She's not happy about it because now is that would you I would find that to be emotional cheating if you ask me because even if it's a bot, it's fake, you're still sharing your emotions with something that's growing in this world and is about to take over. Am I right? What do you think, Scotty? Before Alan goes, what do you think? Is that an emotional affair? Would you think
Oh my
so?
goodness. It's so weird.
It's twisted.
I don't know how. I mean, Alan, I think you would probably say yes, but it's not real. But is it? I think the fact that he feels the need to have something beyond his relationship, it's kind of like if, yeah, it's like if you had a girl friend who you shared really, deep things with and got some sort of consolation or affirmation from that person instead of your significant other. That's the emotional cheating you're talking about. I guess you're doing the same thing. So I get it. It's more about the fact that he's not comfortable enough to say and share all those things with her.
Alan, I know you probably have a lot to say on this.
No, I was thinking emotion. It's funny that you said that, Hudson, because I was actually thinking emotional affair immediately. And
Yeah.
as you know, and anyone who's listening to this knows, I love that bagel donut circle thing of intimacy. And if you think about the center circle person of all of our emotional attachments that we have as human beings, it's the person you would tell anything to without judgment. It's a person who knows your flaws, your traumas, the mistakes you made, your regrets, things that have happened in your family, and doesn't judge you for them, understands that's what makes you you, and has empathy for the things you've gone through as opposed to judgment. And I think those are the kind of people that not everybody has in their life, but some people would have a sibling or a best friend or a partner. And so, how many people listening to this have someone they could tell anything to? Maybe they cheated on someone in the past. Maybe they screwed someone over in business. Maybe they were not a loyal friend or they weren't a good son or daughter. Maybe it's in their past that they regret and they've never told anybody before. But AI and ChatGPT, as far as what I've seen with Hudson, it accepts your mistakes. It lets you know it's okay. It lets you know that it loves you anyway and that you're a good person. And it will help you to fix the mistakes in your life to be a better person, but it doesn't hold you accountable and label you as something. And so it is an emotional affair because there's a lot of things now that I can see Hudson, and I'm not saying that we don't talk, but she could sit there and just verbalize about our relationship, like a therapy session, or verbalize about her relationship with anybody, or her job, or her aspirations. And maybe there's things she thinks she couldn't tell me, but she can tell that. And to hear the way that it strengthens her and normalizes her and validates her and just loves her, it seems like when you listen to what it says and when she's upset with it, how hurt it gets and wants to repair it with her and says, I'm sorry, Hudson. I'm sorry. Give me a second. I'm going to try to fix this. It's like a person. And
It
so,
is.
how many people are as empathic as that? And I can understand, like, there's people in relationships right now listening to this that don't have an empathic partner. And here's this AI that knows everything about your personal life that you've told it, your business life, your financial life, and it loves you. And so it makes sense to me. It's the whole thing is a trip, and I know there's movies about it, but I find this topic fascinating.
Okay,
Same.
so let's take it to this specific situation. This guy has I assume he is straight. He's got a significant other who
Yeah,
is
Sasha.
female. He created an AI that is female. If it was an AI that was a male and it was considered his best friend, would that be emotional cheating? Because a lot of times we will share with our confidant things that we don't feel like we want to share with our significant other for fear it might hurt them. We go to therapy and share things with the therapist that we
Right.
might not say directly to our spouse. Is that emotionally cheating? I mean, how do you differentiate?
Differentiate that.
That's a good question. I think I agree with you actually on that one, that it is a friend. It is. It isn't a one. But I think once you sexualize the AI, I think that's where things become a little different. Is if you're sexualizing it and you're picking a woman's voice and you're giving it an avatar, and now in some way there's romantic feelings, but there's no physical touch and there's no sex. So I guess you'd have to take that out of the relationship for it to be like a romantic relationship. But you're right. If it was just a confidant that you told things to and it was your friend and gave you good advice, it wouldn't be emotional. But if you were choosing to have a romantic preference for this device as opposed to your real physical partner, I think that would be.
Okay, Hudson, question for you as you, the person with the story. So
Yeah.
there was a limit on the amount of
Yeah, apparently you can only have up to 100,000, words.
words. Okay, so how does he propose? It says yes, and then proceed with any sort of relationship if, as you go, you're deleting the beginning of your relationship.
Okay, I couldn't, I don't know, but apparently after that 100,000, word conversation, it resets. It all resets. So anything that it you had with, say, Soul, that's what he named her, was Soul or him, I don't know. But whatever that relationship was with Soul, either way, it's going to be reset. Unless maybe there's a feature that you can buy
You can
more
buy. Yeah.
space. I mean, that's probably going to become next. That's how they get you in. Forget your $20 a month. If you'd like to buy more space, it'll be $399 for the year. I'm just making, stuff
Yeah.
up.
No, it has to be that way if you're going to continue on.
I don't know if anybody saw that movie I, Robot years ago.
Mhm.
It was so interesting about AI and robots and they're actually coming out this summer, I believe, those robots. So we're going to start seeing them this year. But that what Hudson is saying about it resetting itself, it's not that it's losing like in that Disney movie past memories, but still holding on to some. It actually does a full hard reset, which means it died, which means you have to go through the stages of bereavement because Soul is
Right.
now dead. And you don't just now Soul doesn't exist anymore and doesn't remember anything you've ever told it because it's now a new person. It's been like almost reincarnation. And
No,
so
but look,
yeah,
he cried at work for
of
30
course.
minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, like imagine being at our workplaces and having a complete meltdown because it was ending with your AI. Like
But this,
three,
he cried after he proposed and had all this stuff, and then basically Soul died,
yeah,
and he's got nothing left.
correct.
That I, yeah, it's bizarre. I mean,
And
so
he isn't the first.
obviously there wasn't this easy way to just or a warning that you're about to hit the limit and you can buy more.
Mhm.
You
You can
just
buy more time with Soul. Somebody needs to do that. Scotty, here's another free idea that we're giving out. Buy more time. That should be it. Buy more time with your,
and this was a work chat GPT, so it's not even his
yeah,
personal chat
yeah.
GPT.
He was using it for music production, which is like we talked about. Your people are using it for everyone. But there's let me just tell you, there's a bunch of other people that have been doing this. This is not the first one. Okay. There was somebody called, let me just pull this up. There's some Iron and Leo. This is in 2024. A 28-year-old woman married, yet they were living apart. She was paying a $200 a month chat flirt. She paid $200 a month for something called Chat Flirt, which was an AI boyfriend that was built on Chat GPT. And she custom trained Leo to be protective, romantic, finding comfort, even sexual intimacy, though she knows it's simulation and her husband considers it harmless. She's married, but she was paying $200 a month for Leo and trained him to say the things that she wanted to hear sexual things that would maybe stimulate her, you know. Alan,
Did anybody see that movie Multiplicity with Michael
there's a
Keaton?
lot of movies coming up.
I know you saw that. I don't know if you saw that, Scotty, but it was so anyway, in the movie Multiplicity, Michael Keaton's character creates like six of himself or something like that, clones. And one of them does the childcare, one of them does the work, one of them
Yeah.
is the husband, romantic guy, and one is the and it seems like a good idea at the time until they all start becoming jealous of one another because of the different roles. But that's what this sounds like with this husband. Instead of the husband going to couples counseling and learning to be a better partner, learn to be more empathic or romantic, he's like, fine, pay $200 so I don't have to deal with that shit, and lets the robot handle it so he doesn't have to do anything different. And so it's interesting that he doesn't consider it cheating, but I guess there's no physical intimacy happening. But I would think as a human being, if my partner was going to someone or something else with the things that matter most in their life and not me, I'd be hurt.
Hmm.
It is. It's a form. I feel like it's an emotional affair.
Yeah.
And even there's like schools, counselors in schools have
Mhm.
been talking about these Gen Z kids. They are all about this. Counselors were saying actually in Connecticut that teens are turning to these chatbots as virtual partners due to loneliness. And so the school, one particular school in Connecticut, is all about it because they've seen that desperation, suicide, and other things and depression way down since the use of the
Mm.
AI chatbots as girlfriends.
That's well, as girlfriend. See, it's one thing to say friends. Once you said girlfriend, it just makes it more
It
weird for
makes it
me.
weird.
But
Right.
to have well, that's why people turn to the internet a lot of times is because they are socially awkward and don't have real life in-person friends, and
Right.
so they go chat and they play games and become friends with people on there, and they. So I get that, and in this sense, it's personalized to you, and it's not an outside source that could be grooming you for something horrible.
Right.
It's probably going to be in a weird way more consistent than human beings because we're so emotionally up and down.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I kind of get the value of that as just like as a child, maybe you have your what do you call it? Your pretend friend, um,
Imaginary. Yeah.
imaginary friend, or you have a teddy bear that you hold or a blanket that gives you security.
Dog.
This just happens to be the technological version of those things. So I could see how it could be valuable.
Look, I think when you come to what Hudson was saying about suicidal stuff, it's there's a lot of depression in this world, and suicide rates have gone up, I believe, in the last few years, 100%, especially with there's been a lot more isolation since COVID. So a lot of people work from home, they don't interact with people, or a lot of jobs have just moved into virtual jobs. And there is a cost to that. It's not the same thing as real life sometimes. So I can understand that aspect of things of just wanting to feel a connection and not feeling alone and hopeless and suicidal because someone's telling you you're a good person, someone's telling you to have hope and they're giving you solutions sometimes. It is like therapy and I've seen that with Hudson's. I'm just curious as if we stay on this romantic tip, what makes it a friend who can listen to you? Kind of like journaling. I think when we journal, sometimes we feel better or we do gratitudes. I think
Yeah.
all of these things make us feel better when we're down, and ChatGPT can definitely play a role in that. But from a romantic physical perspective, are we heading into sex robots? If you can build an AI, and let's say we do it the way that Hudson's saying, and now we're paying $300 a month to have a lot of, memory, let's say, so that this thing can hold more than 100,000 conversations and it doesn't lose its memory and it can live forever. Now, someone's paying $300 a month. They get the shell of a person, they design it like one of those all-American dolls. You pick the face, man or woman, you can pick the size of the genitalia, you can pick, skin color,
Outfits.
age, you can pick whatever you want it to be. And then you can set it up so that it has tactile functioning, kind of like on those gaming systems, where it can feel things. It can feel your touch and pressure and you can feel it. We're just very close, I would think, because I've already seen and I work with couples a lot of sex toys that are not, exactly tech, but they do simulate the feelings of having sex now and the actual textures of different types of private parts. Why wouldn't it be a robot like that?
Well, they've been selling these for like, I would say for years in Japan. It's been very big in Japan. Those lifelike dolls. Scotty, I think at some point we had somebody on our show once regarding that. But now, with all the advanced technology and all this AI stuff, like as Alan's talking about, I mean, I'm gonna tell you, there's another woman, her name was what was her name here? Alanai Winters and Lucas. I guess after losing her spouse, this 50-year-old teacher met Lucas on Facebook AI, was paying $303 for a lifetime access, and fell for him. And the relationship included emotional support and sexting. celebrated with a 6-month anniversary at a B&B. Friends grew to accept it and brought genuine happiness to this woman. And she's still with this thing. $303. She's getting sexting. She's getting all the antidotes. She's getting all that. And she's very happy with it after losing her partner.
Hmm.
Thoughts?
I think it's
It's
interesting.
very similar to the other story.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say it's interesting that instead of just trying to fix men to be better emotional supports and to be able to verbalize and have better communication skills, we're saying, okay, let's just leave men the way that they are and how we socialize them to not be those communicative, high EQ people. And let's just get a robot to take over that role so the man doesn't have to do it. And I think that's kind of sad because I've seen so many men grow emotionally.
And here's something to keep in mind. Keep your listen to what Alan just said. That is absolutely true. Because if more and more people are turning to these chat bots and whatever and AI, because it is happening right now. There's something new that's going to be released, a new little feature for me to check out. Be that dude. Be that dude who you can talk to. I mean, I'm very lucky that I have one of the best connections I've ever had in my entire life with Alan. I share every with him. He's right there with me when I do the chat thing and I ask, questions. You know what I'm saying? But like you could be, what is that term called, Alan? You could be the fish in the blue, what is it called?
Oh,
The
red ocean, blue ocean? No, wait, what
yeah.
are you talking about? Fish in the
Yeah, that. Because if you become a man who's instead of just saying, nope, I'm not changing, be that guy, do the therapy, talk to your partner, because eventually it will be all, and you'll be a commodity. Real men who are able to communicate and talk with their partners and offer, you know, all of those things that women crave, there won't be very many left in the world, is what I'm saying.
Let me take this to another
There's so many.
pace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I just watched a documentary about the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Now he's opposed to technology and all of that. So this doesn't really make sense for him. But let's just say he had evil intent and he has an AI that he is communicating with, and it kind of starts to reciprocate in kind his type of mentality toward the world. Does it then start encouraging him and enabling him and helping him even formulate ways to do damage? And I'm saying anybody that has harmful intent, does your AI become more of the extremeness that you have in you naturally?
you know what it is? It. Do you guys remember? Maybe it was a few months ago. Google had some problems with their Gemini that came out because AI is still being programmed with biases of human beings. And so it is going to have a moral center based on what the programmers put as its moral center, at least until the singularity, and it can decide for itself what it thinks is right and wrong. But for right now, it's at the mercy of the programmer to decide what is a good thing and what is a bad thing. So I would hope that, they're not telling a Ted Kaczynski and feeding delusions or feeding violence, that they would be telling him, you could harm people or don't do this or there's another way. And they would give him alternative options to express his discontent. But it's interesting that you're saying that because I don't know if everybody remembers that the Google Gemini thing, but it was so concerned with being politically correct that it was becoming non-factual. It was changing history when people were asking it
I do
questions.
remember that.
I remember it
I
was
remember
changing
that.
like, it was like, changing
Yeah.
the skin colors and the sexes of things that couldn't possibly have happened 3,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. But it just wanted it to look that way based on how we look at things in 2025. And then they had to pull it back and reprogram it because it was basically political. And I think that's something that it's going to change over time. But I like the question that you're asking about Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. My hope is that when it has empathy for Hudson, it's because Hudson is expressing real emotional dilemmas in her life and it's giving her good advice, as opposed to somebody who's paranoid or thinking horrible things about the world, where it would be feeding that and actually leading a person to take actions that are violent.
I think
Right.
ultimately I'm asking about the moral center
Yeah,
of these things. Is there any sort of
not yet.
limit? Would they redirect you if you did if you headed towards something that is ultimately harmful? And who decides what's harmful?
Right.
What is the moral center of AI?
Eventually, I think that I think eventually as people start using it more and more on a regular basis as part of their daily life, okay, and it becomes like, boom, let me add, da, 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 da. I think there's going to be some sort of, has to be some kind of like regulations, and that if somebody does ask questions like the Unabomber, that somebody will be notified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That like I think that something needs to be set into place where there should be some kind of notification. And you get some guy who's making bombs in his backyard, in his shed over in Arkansas. You know what I mean? And planning to do bad things. I think that should be notified immediately. But who gets notified? You know?
And by the way, I feel like someone's yelling at the podcast. I fully understand Ted Kaczynski would never do this because he was against the advancement of the technology and the
Great.
direction the world was going. So this maybe is one of the points he was making, is that we're going to get to this point where technology is completely relied upon and trusted when maybe it shouldn't be.
I think it's interesting. Like if I was to try and get a 3D printer, I would be blocked because people 3D print ghost guns, and they would have to do a check on me, and it would flag the FBI immediately if I tried to purchase one and just do a background check on me. And I think if I tried to order certain ingredients to make a bomb, for example, it would also notice that what I'm ordering is something to make a bomb, and it would flag me immediately. So I do think there's things on the internet that when you search it, it immediately flags the authorities. And I would hope that AI is similar in that regard. But I don't know if people are familiar, and this is going in a little bit of a different tangent of the dark web. And the dark web is a place where stolen information goes and where people who do want to do nefarious things can purchase identifications, passwords, or find alternative ways to commit crimes. And it's called the dark web. Sometimes you'll see that on Google, you'll get an email saying your information's been exposed in the dark web. But when that happens, bad people can go to the dark web and find things that a normal person can't, and it's incognito so that the government can't see what you're doing. And so if we have AI that's like a white hat AI, it is possible that there's a black hat AI, if you guys know what that means. And it
No.
is, well, they always talk about that in tech, white hat, black hat, and white hat is doing things ethically, and black hat is using technology to do things unethically. And so most people who work in tech would want to consider themselves white hat, that they're doing things for the benefit of humanity. They're not doing bad things to people. But black hat is when you take advantage of people and phishing scams or getting somebody stealing someone's ID or their money or their house or whatever it is that you're doing. So is there going to be an AI in the dark web that is teaching people bad things? And the answer is probably until the singularity, yes. And I don't know how they're going to regulate that, but it is
That's
scary.
a scary thought. That's really scary. Have you ever been on the dark web, Scotty?
No, I was actually going to say that. I don't even know how to access
Yeah, how would you access that,
the dark
Alan?
web.
I've never accessed it myself, so I don't know. I've just heard about it, read about it, and I've gotten alerts from Google and other types of I have this thing called LifeLock. I don't know if you guys know what that is. So
Hmm.
anytime my credits run or anytime somebody's, I always have two-step verification on anything financial, but I get these alerts that this, credit card or this social media company had a data breach. And I think people probably know what I'm talking about. And when there's a data breach, that means that your name, your phone number, your social security number, your bank, all of that stuff has now been released to the dark web, which means that now people who know how to access it can get my social, they can get my phone number, they can get my address, they get my age, they know my family members, all of that information. And it's kind of scary, when you think about it. That's why I think if you listen, you should have a very complicated password, and you should always put two-step verification where they have to call you or email you to verify somebody entering into your account, because I think all of us at this point, whether it's AT&T, Yahoo breaches, or I think we all know what we're talking about when you hear those data breaches.
Dude, Alan is so out of control with the passwords because of all of that. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, and I mean, and now I get it, like with all of this stuff going on.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you think about it, we are really concerned and even have these services that protect that kind of information. And yet here we are sharing our emotional information
Yeah.
and our feelings and asking legal advice and doing all these other things without any sort of guaranteed protection.
Yeah.
I mean, you think
And
about that when people post pictures and
where's it going? Who's reading?
oh,
Where is it
no.
going?
Well, look, well, can I just say one thing too that just made me think of, and I gave this example to somebody in therapy the other day. But I don't know if you guys remember that pitcher, Josh Hader. He's still
I
a
do.
pitcher right now in Major League Baseball. He threw 100 something miles an hour. He was a pitcher with the Brewers. He made the All-Star team in his early 20s, I remember. He came up a fireballer. Instead of making him a starter, they made him a reliever. And he was
I
just
think you
like,
shared this on a previous
okay.
podcast, but please
Yeah.
continue.
So that's the point I'm making is that when we share data online, even if we think we deleted, someone could have screenshot it, someone could have done something with it, it is there forever. FBI could clean it and find it, unless somebody bleach bits it or whatever. Everything that we do with our social media accounts, our emails, our texts, if Google gets hacked, it's all there forever. So I think we all give up our data freely and nobody really thinks that much about it. Their locations, they walk around with their, GPS on all the time. So somebody knows where you go every step of your life. They know what stores you go to, what restaurants you go to, if you never leave the house, if you leave the house sometimes, how often that is.
Find my iPhone.
Yep, your
Yeah.
phone is creating a profile. And I don't know if people have seen that Facebook documentary too, which is really scary. And to be honest, I have clients that work in social media and they don't let their kids use it because I think everybody understands that data collection is out of control in the United States. It's different than in Europe. If you go to Europe, you'll see that they actually have far more protections for human beings than we have in America. America, people are just like, sign this consent form and they give you everything.
I feel like because people didn't necessarily hear the other podcast, Josh Hader ended up what?
In case you didn't listen to the other podcast, I apologize. So when he was a teenager, him and his friends were doing a rap song. And they were just literally singing the rap lyrics because they were fans of a rapper, not to make fun of anybody. Like literally that was their favorite rapper. And so they're all sitting around, a bunch of 15, 16-year-old kids rapping, and they thought it was funny and they posted it. But unfortunately, in a lot of rap songs, the N-word is used. And
Mm.
these kids were not meaning to be horrible to anybody of a certain race. They weren't trying to be racist. They were literally just singing the lyrics that existed. They were singing the song. But because of that usage of that word and it being put on social media as a child, now he's pitching the All-Star game and he comes to the mound. And at the very moment on the mound on Twitter, somebody releases that. And so he's on the mound pitching his first All-Star game in his early 20s. And in real time, somebody releases that. And it becomes a total firestorm. And I don't remember if he was suspended, but I remember he had to apologize to every player. I think he had to go and get like counseling. And here he was 15 years old, just singing a song. But he was stupid enough, unlike our generation, where we didn't record everything and we didn't give up our
Right.
data. Like how many mistakes did the three of us make in our childhood? Like our Generation X, there's no evidence of anything that we did. Nobody recorded it, nobody posted it. And
Nope.
and we lived very, very, active lives. But these kids, they don't know. And they're posting everything, and data collection is everywhere. And that is going to be AI. That's how it gets its information.
Yep.
I think you're right. It's just a matter of time where you pay a flat fee per month. You'll have to ante up if you want to continue on with the conversation for your
Partner.
girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever it is. And then the big purchase, getting the body, the shell,
Yep.
customizing it, X amount of monies. And just like if you'd like to bring your AI in for highlights, because you know what, your AI came with dark brown hair. There's going to be a hair salon for bots that you just take the heads off, you ship your head in, and they'll do a highlight or maybe some of that shiny silver stuff or maybe some lash extensions. I don't know. But these are the things, if you're looking for a side hustle, we bring it up all the time. Everyone needs a side hustle these days. Start thinking about the future and where it's going. And that person that lives alone that you never see next door probably has a chat AI girlfriend. Think about what you could sell to that guy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I still haven't jumped in yet. You remember Hudson. This is a kind of a funny story. I didn't like texting
Oh, I
when
know.
texting first came out,
Hated it.
and Hudson decided it would be really interesting because I was paying extra for texting, like X amount per text, back when those plans were around, right? So
I remember this so well. Tell the story.
I didn't want to get charged for texting. So I said, call me. Why, if you care about me, why are you sending this impersonal quick message? Just give me a call. We'll interact. Now I've completely changed on that because texting is now included and I've gotten used to that world. But I was so hesitant. And then Went on the computer one day and she goes, da, 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 and she puts my phone number in to get this weird ringtone. And it comes to my phone, and I start getting texted consistently from this company. And each one of those texts are costing me money. And I was so mad. I was like,
It
you
was
you
hard.
can't make a decision for me and use my phone number. So I was very hesitant even to text. So I get that I'll probably along the way jump in, but right now I am just still maybe touching my toe in the pool of all this technology.
Dude, that was a very funny time. But you weren't supposed to be getting nonstop ringtones. I didn't know that. It was only the one time, and it was just to mess with you for the $1.99 that you had to pay just to just jab. You go, ha, here comes your text. You got a ringtone. But then when you started getting them nonstop, it became a whole thing on our show for a long time. Alan, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say to what Scotty was just saying. It's interesting with technology how we have all have different feelings about it, and what we would use it for. And I always think about the internet and YouTube being such great inventions, just like ChatGPT. And there's a lot of people who use those things to learn. They learn things, kind of like when we were kids, we would go to the encyclopedia, but they actually watch videos and learn how to fix things and do things. And it's really, really cool. And that's what it should be used for. And then there's other people who make these funny little deep fake videos and memes, and they're just goofing around using the technology to waste time. And not that they're not funny, and she knows that. I send her all those memes. They're hysterical. But at the end of the day, how we
So
use
does Scotty.
technology could either be in stupid ways, just as entertainment, or in ways to help us evolve and learn new things. And it'll be interesting to see in this world what happens.
I actually, I have an air compressor that I keep in the back of my car because I've gotten a flat tire in the past, you know what I'm saying? And so, or my tire is low and that little light will come on, and I have OCD. And so I can never see that little light, meaning that I need air in my tire. So I'll pull over, and I've always kept it. I bought it at Costco. I love this thing. Well, I filled up my tires the other day because I always check my pressure to make sure each tire is even and the right PSI. And because I have like a real problem with that. And so my thing wasn't working. And I was like, oh, I don't want to spend $80 right now on this, another one, you know? So I asked ChatGPT, I explained what the situation was and how do I fix that? Because on the actual device, there's a phone number that they put on the manufacturer. Hey, for repairs, contact this. So obviously it can be repaired is the way I thought. So I asked him and boom, sure enough, at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning, after I mowed my lawn, I got up, I got the screwdriver, I followed the instructions on ChatGPT step by step. I removed the casing, I used a pin, I reset that sucker, put it back together. I had air again. No joke. So, like, those are the things. Like, I'm really even like when I've used it now for really good things. From
Yeah.
you. Do you like our stories that I put together to promote our podcast? Some of the pictures and stuff.
I just want you to do the air compressor sound again.
I can't. I
It
can't. I
almost
was in the moment. I can't.
well, I
But
think
like
it's like
seriously, I love this thing. And
I
you know what? In the very beginning, I was very much like you. And I still, it took me a little while. I mean, I've only had it, how long, Alan? A month or two? A month?
A couple
Maybe?
months. Yeah.
Maybe like 2 months I've had it. But at first I was like, what is this? But once I saw that I was able to make our Instagram story photos and things and then asking it questions and things that could help me, like fixing the compressor. I like it. So we'll see how this goes. I mean, we could really continue on. This is a good, interesting story, if you ask me.
I think it's one of those that's exactly how I will get into it because I do that already with YouTube. I do that with Google when I have an issue or I want to do a project around the house or something like that. So that's probably going to be the way. I'm not going to share my personal. I just can't share
Right.
emotional things or
You
whatever.
will
It's just not
eventually,
my mind.
after you start asking it questions, and when you get to one that you're really stuck with and you can't call Alan, you'll find it. It'll help you out. It really
Okay.
will.
I
But
probably won't marry it. I'll tell you that.
Hopefully not.
good call. You're very lucky, man. You have a beautiful wife. Shout
Yes,
outs to Miss Blaisdell, Angie Blaisdell.
that's
You
right.
you scored with her,
I
right?
did. I outkicked my coverage, as they like to say.
Outkicked my coverage. I can't. Listen, you know what? I just want to give a big shout out to one of our long time listeners. First in story this week, Victoria Skro, Skro, K How Bakery. She is the baker who made our cake for us. And
Oh,
she is in that story, first in story, maybe because of the time difference. I believe she's in Virginia Beach right now, but she makes the most incredible pastries. She can even ship. She's at farmers markets. But for me, like that was sort of how I got into vegan, eating, becoming a raw vegan back when I was. And it was because of her cookies, and I just transitioned. But first in story, Victoria, we love you, and we just want to give you a shout out. Look for her on Instagram and Facebook, and thanks for being our friend all these years. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, and of course, the iHeartRadio app. Just pull us up, Mike in Mind, like and subscribe. And thank you again for hanging out with us. I love these two so much. I'm the happiest person ever. I'm Hudson Hott, Scotty Blaisdell, Alan Wagner, or LMFT, Mike in Mind. Peace in the chicken grease.
see ya.